Okay, can everyone hear me now? Without an echo. Thankfully, our wonderful IT team helped us narrow it down. And for some reason, one of our projectors up high in chambers was not muted. And that's what was, so it wasn't any of our laptops. I don't know how that happened between committee of the whole and now, but that was the problem. So, phew, one more thing to check when things are not going right. But anyway, sorry for that, everyone. We're ready to go now. So welcome to the special business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, December 8th. We are meeting on the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, Hatsqualin, Withlukmuk, Squamish, Oemeo. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have Ministerial Order M192. It is slightly amended due to the new public health orders. So the district is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability at this meeting by the following means. This meeting is being live streamed. A video of this meeting will be available on the district's website for viewing on an on-demand basis, and the meeting is open to the public for electronic participation. Motion to approve that. Moved by Councillor Pettengill, seconded by Councillor French. Any opposed? Motion carries. As with every electronic meeting, I will read out the rules of electronic participation. Council members attending the meeting electronically are required to advise the chair of the following circumstances when a member connects or disconnects or reconnects so that this can be recorded in the minutes. Council members are to identify themselves when they advise the chair they wish to speak by either raising their hand if they're on video or just saying chair if they're by audio only. With respect to a vote, council members are only required to state a nay vote. No statement is required if you're in favor. We ask everyone to keep their phone or computer on mute unless it is their turn to speak. That includes council, staff, and the public this evening. Council members will be involved in and participate in the meeting. Council members shall text the corporate officer if they're having technical difficulties, and we'll recess the meeting if we're having technical difficulties on our side, which hopefully are over now, and everything will go smoothly from here. So we do have just one item tonight, public hearing. So I will read the opening statement. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act requirements that allow the public to present and to provide submissions to council respecting the proposed bylaw. In this case, District of Squamish zoning bylaw, number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw, business park zoning, number 2767-2020. Everyone present will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or provide a written submission. We want to ensure that no one is discouraged or prevented from making their views known, whether speaking in favor or against the proposed zoning amendment. Please ensure that your remarks are relevant to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Please note that the public hearing is not an opportunity for members of the public to have their questions answered by staff or by council. Any questions or points of clarification can be directed to staff by contacting the planning department. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted to the district website. Members of council may ask clarifying questions following presentations. Council is here to listen and will not debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public or with each other during the public hearing. Up to and as part of this hearing, the public has had the opportunity to make submissions to council. If any submissions were received, they are available for review and comment and have been included as part of staff's report. Any submissions received after the agenda was published have been added to the electronic agenda and to the electronic public hearing package available on the district website. Any submissions made during the hearing can be reviewed during the hearing by viewing the electronic agenda. Submissions will be uploaded by staff as they are received. I'll now ask, just before I go to the planning department, I know some people like to know how many people are online and watching, so maybe I'll ask our moderator to just let us know.
We currently have 9.
There's 9 people online and no one on the phone at this point. I'll now ask the planning department to outline what the bylaw is proposing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Gunn. I'm a planner for the District of Squamish, and I am just going to start sharing my presentation. Please let me know if you can now see that presentation.
Yep, go ahead.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm presenting Bylaw 2767 for first and second reading. This bylaw addresses zoning for the business park. Our current zoning bylaw was adopted in 2011. The bylaw has been updated numerous times since its initial adoption. We adopted a new OCP at the district in 2018, and this was followed by initiation of the 2020 zoning bylaw update. A major component of the update is to align zoning with the official community plan. The zoning update has been separated into 3 stages based on content priority. Right now, we're working on business park zoning, which is in stage 2. Other elements that will be included in this stage include the low carbon incentive, a smart growth neighborhood incentive, marine zoning, and updated community mapping. I'll now present details of Bylaw 2767. A core component of Bylaw 2767 is to establish an expanded commercial activities area, or ECAA, at the north end of the business park. The intent of the ECAA is to support industrial businesses that rely on a complementary commercial component and support commercial businesses that have specific state space needs that can't be met in other areas of the community. This approach aligns with results from the employment space demand model, which indicates a sufficient potential supply of light industrial land in Squamish, but some challenges meeting retail needs. The approach also supports light industrial activity outside the ECAA, some of which experiences challenges from interactions with commercial activities. Outside the ECAA, regulations are intended to restrict further commercial activity. New restaurants are not permitted. Spot zoning for a few existing restaurants has been provided, but in general, no new restaurants are permitted outside the ECAA. New fitness centers outside the ECAA are not permitted. Tasting rooms associated with beverage manufacturers are constrained to alcohol beverage manufacturers are constrained to 20% maximum of the gross floor area or the floor area. We have done some spot zoning for an existing tasting room that does currently exceed this size. New auto-oriented commercial and building supply outlets are not permitted south of Industrial Way. Regulations have been changed to ensure that office space is accessory to a permitted use in the business park outside of the ECAA. And finally, there's a 200-meter separation between cannabis production facilities in the current zoning bylaw that's eliminated in this bylaw. Bylaw 2767 also rezones 4 undeveloped parcels from I-4 and I-11, which reflect light industrial uses, to I-3, which reflects medium industrial uses. These parcels are designated for intensive industrial land use within the OCP, and the I-3 zone that's proposed is aligned with this designation. The amendment is intended to support medium industrial businesses which do not have much suitable land available in Squamish. These businesses have significant space needs for the storage of raw inputs, the storage of manufactured products, and transportation logistics. Oops, sorry about that. Some conditions have been developed in the I-3 zone specific to these 4 properties. High impact industrial uses will be prohibited. This is intended to minimize negative impacts on other business park users. In addition, a minimum 30% of the lot area is required for storage and shipping facilities, and this is intended to address specific space needs of medium industrial uses. Some conditions have been developed in the I-3 zones. I did want to include a little bit of background to the medium industrial discussion, in particular because it was a focus of discussion at the last meeting when we talked about, when we looked at first and second reading for this bylaw. So if we just look at this set of maps here, we can see the area in question on the west side of the business park, circled in red in the 2002 business park plan. This area had been designated for heavy industrial, which is the equivalent of the medium industrial we're discussing today, as in that 2002 business park plan. And in the drafting of the official community plan, areas to the east of to the west of Queensway were designated for intensive industrial, that purple area taking on the characteristics of the 2000 Business Park Plan. I've also included some history of the zoning for these parcels. The parcels outlined in red were zoned a mix of I-1 and I-4 in the 1995 zoning bylaw. That zoning was carried forward in the 2011 zoning bylaw update and remained until 2019, when the 3 dark gray areas were rezoned to I-11 to remove commercial uses. Medium industrial was examined in the 2020 district employment, space demand, and industrial land supply model. This study highlighted that the total capacity for medium industrial could be insufficient to meet projected demand under some scenarios within the next 6 years. The land supply analysis indicated that only 8.75 hectares of medium industrial land is currently undeveloped and available. And the 4 parcels in question, which were included within that 8.75 hectares, because those lands were designated for intensive industrial, those four parcels represent 7.5 hectares, or 86% of that identified available in medium industrial land. The graph on the screen depicts the total capacity of medium industrial in the community with the yellow line, and it does include the 4 parcels that we're discussing that are proposed for I3 zoning. If those parcels are not rezoned to I3, then only 1.25 hectares of land will remain available for new medium industrial activity within the district, and that yellow line would be lowered by approximately 10%, further exacerbating the projected shortfall of medium industrial land. A key reason staff proposed preserving land for medium industrial uses is to support priority sectors identified in the Emerging Sectors Action Plan. Medium industrial land is considered the preferred location for the following priority sectors: value-added wood industries, forestry and logging, renewable energy, clean technology, and commercial transportation. And these medium industrial activities tend to generate high wages. Average wages are noted along with examples of local firms that fit within the medium industrial zoning and their approximate employee numbers on the screen. And I won't read those out, but it is outlined in the staff report. In response to the proposed land-intensive industrial rezoning, affected stakeholders have expressed concerns that the value of medium industrial activity to the Squamish community Squamish economy is overstated, that medium industrial I3 development will not necessarily occur, even if the zoning is put in place, that light industrial supply is not sufficient to meet local or lower mainland demand for our industrial land base, and also that the proposed amendments exacerbate the loss of development opportunities on the property, specifically due to the form and character DPA guidelines, the landscaping requirements, the existing flood construction grade changes, and storage area requirements. The suggestion was made also by stakeholders that if moving forward along these lines, some changes could be made to the zoning. These could be better changes, and in specific to those I3 zones, it would be to reduce the storage requirements, to allow accessory sales, and to add some of the I1 uses to those properties. To address some of the concerns that were raised by stakeholders related to lost development opportunities, staff proposed an OCP amendment to redesignate the business park land-intensive industrial properties, so those are the ones that are in red that are proposed to be rezoned to I3, from DPA 9, industrial employment, to DPA 10, intensive and restricted industrial. That new DPA, or the proposed DPA 10, has a less onerous form and character and does not include the siting and landscaping elements identified as problematic. In addition, staff proposed amending development permit area 10 to include a new guideline that supports variance to the parking landscaping requirements in the zoning bylaw for business park land intensive industrial properties. And the staff's thought is that those amendments would enable changes to site design that could mitigate some of the landowners' concerns. And in drafting the OCP and creating these DPA areas, the DPA areas were created based on the zoning, but if those lands are rezoned to a medium industrial zone, it does indeed make sense to use a medium industrial type DPA, which would be DPA 10. But I would note that having made that proposal, stakeholder concerns have been raised that these proposed lower form and character requirements would not complement the existing and proposed development along Queensway. With regards to the public hearing requirements, district and legislative engagement processes were followed and notices of public hearing were published in the Squamish Chief on November 26th and December 3rd. Following the public hearing, staff recommend third reading for the bylaw, and staff also recommend that council direct staff to amend the development permit area designations for lands being rezoned to general industrial I3 to development permit area 10 and to include new guidelines that support variances to the landscaping requirements in the zoning bylaw for business park land intensive industrial properties. And finally, staff have prepared 2 alternate recommendations for council in the staff report. Option 1 would be appropriate if council would like to remove all elements of the bylaw that are rezoning properties to I3. Option 2 would be appropriate if council would like to remove elements of the bylaw that rezone properties only along Queensway to I3. Because those involve changes to uses, if those are options that council are interested in, the motion includes the requirement that we would rescind second, amend the bylaw, and the language is in those options that's necessary to do so. Then give second reading and schedule a public hearing, which again is included within the proposed amendments. So that is the public hearing presentation from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. I'll go to council first for any clarifying questions, and then I will go to the public. So Councilor Pengill, then Councilor Race.
Thank you. So I understand the rationale for the changes to the R3, or the I3, I should say, are to support some of our target and core sectors. As I read the bylaw, though, am I correct in thinking that you could put a number of industrial uses aside from those in that, and then we would still be short of industrial space for those desired uses or those target sectors?
Sorry, just to make sure I under the question through you, Chair. Is your question how that land would match up with our projected demand and for medium industrial?
But more specifically, the target sectors, medium industrial needs of our target and core sectors, as opposed to something else. Like I do see there's the high impact exclusions, but outside of that, there's, to my mind, a whole bunch of things that wouldn't support any of our core target sectors. That, and quite frankly, seems like they would be at odds with our climate policy, or could be, and so on. So I'm wondering, is there something I'm missing that sort of says, yes, I3, but I3 with these restrictions that supports our core and target sectors?
Okay, I will try and answer, but if I'm off track, please interrupt me and let me know I'm off track. With the I3, proposed I3 rezoning for those properties, we're trying to create land that could accommodate our core sectors, because there are a number of core sectors that I discussed in the presentation that utilize that type of zoning, that medium industrial land base, but that could be occupied by non-core sector medium industrials, theoretically, in which case we wouldn't have enough for all of the medium industrial land that are all the core sector activity that we're looking for. But and specifically about the projected demand, I did have that. It's in the staff report, and we could scroll back to it. But I did have that graph which showed the projected land base that we expect would be used for medium industrial, taking into account our expected growth in core sectors under a successful promotion strategy to those sectors. And those graphs indicate that after 6 years, we could be coming short of supply for those core sectors. I think that maybe was the point you were going towards, or the question you were going towards, but if I'm off, please let me know and I'll.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if I can help. So and when I look at I8, for example, there's a preamble. The intent of this zone is yada yada, light industrial uses, high tech and research and development activity. So it sort of gives this is why we're doing this, put some constraints on it. And then under the permitted uses, there is some flexibility still to go outside of that, but it does seem that there's a bit of an attempt to really try and constrain it to those, to that purpose. And I'm wondering why we've been a lot more free and open to what you can do here.
Okay. So through you, Chair, is your question along the lines of could the I3 have been drafted to permit industrial within specific sectors as opposed to being fully open to all industrial? Is that kind of the nature of your question? Why did we not constrain the
Yeah.
industrial to the core sectors? Okay. Yeah, so that is probably something that we could have done. It's not something that we have done much of in the zoning bylaw in general. Most of the industrial zones are fairly broad. So like the I8 and I9 allows light industrial, which has a big range of kind of sectors. It's more about what activity would take place, but not the specific sectors that we get into, even though the intent does say, it's intended to support, for example, high technology. We still, the use is pretty broad. And with I3, it's kind of, it encapsulates that style of use, but doesn't specify anywhere the type. We do have a couple of zones like the rock processing and there's, I think it's called log processing. We have a couple of zones that are specific to sectors, and that is something that potentially could have been incorporated, but it wasn't something that kind of came up during the stakeholder engagement that led us to that point.
Okay, I'll stand down for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Race?
Thank you. And it's just on process, Mr. Gunn. To Mr. Gunn. So if we did not, if we went for option 1 or option 2, they would automatically be left as is for their development permit areas. The way so it's only the ones that get zoned to I3 that might go to DP10.
Yeah.
CPA10.
So to you, Chair, yeah, there is in the staff recommendation, the second item is that those lands get rezoned to, let me just go look at it for a second here. Yeah, so it basically in the recommendation, it says the lands that get rezoned to I3 be amended in terms of their development permit area. So whatever choice council makes in terms of which lands get rezoned to I3, for example, if they go with one of the alternate recommendations, that change in development permit area could flow along, could be added in to those recommendations and make that change to whichever lands get changed.
Okay. And if some didn't get changed, then the DP area wouldn't change for them.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions before I go to the public? Yes, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. I just want to clarify the proposal to shift the DP area guideline from 9 to 10 allows some leniency on the landscaping and the parking. Does it impact the expectation for frontage, such as sidewalk along Queensway?
About that. No, I don't think, because the frontage would be in the, and perhaps Jonas, if you want to step in here just to correct me if I'm wrong, but the frontage is off-site of the private property, and so it would fall to our regular subdivision and development control bylaw. The DPA is specific to the land that is owned by the applicant, and so it doesn't affect the proposal along the public right-of-way in the road, so that the sidewalk requirements and such.
That's correct.
Anything else? Okay. So I'll now go to the public. Details to participate by telephone or WebEx are displayed, shortly be displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. Instructions are also included on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, if you're on the telephone, please raise your hand, so to speak, by dialing *3, or on WebEx, on computer or cell phone, you open the participant panel and click on the hand icon. Please note that there will be a moderator who will communicate with speakers. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt if you're on the telephone, or a dialog box if you are participating via WebEx. Please remember to put your hand down after you have finished speaking. Again, *3 on the telephone, or by clicking on the hand icon again on WebEx. Please note that due to the most recent public health order, the option for in-person participation for public hearings is currently not available. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood. Please note that speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to address council in order that everyone has the opportunity to speak to council. If you use up your 5 minutes and you still wish to speak again, we'll just go through the speakers list a first time and then come back to those who would like to make further submissions. I'll now turn to our moderator.
Oh, yep, so we have one speaker so far. We have Joanne Molinaro. Sorry if I mispronounced that, Joanne. So Joanne, I'm going to unmute you. We're going to the WebEx caller. You have up to 5 minutes, as the mayor just said. Please state your name and address for the record. And you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi there, it's Joanne Molinaro. My address is 8337 Needles Drive in Whistler. I am the owner of 2 properties of the 4 that are considered under the bylaw, and I have a great concern about why the frontage parcels on Queensway have been included. They seem to be trying to think of the proper word. It just seems rather restrictive, and I don't quite get the rationale when all the properties around have different zoning. And so my 2 properties were rezoned on July 2nd, 2019 from I-1 to I-11, and then they're now being contemplated to be rezoned to I-3, whereas the other smaller parcel along Queensway is I-4 and contemplated to be I-3. So I believe you've received my letter sent to you, and again, a different one modified slightly, just appealing to mayor and council to remove my 38933 Queensway, as well as 38939 Queensway from I-3. It seems apparent that the properties are the only 2 frontage lots, and I'm asking that 2 W and V are struck from the bylaw as proposed. And it just feels like we're being singled out as a property owner in this down zone where these 2 parcels are the only 2 Queensway frontage. And I'm just concerned about sort of forming character and how things are developed in a cohesive manner. And I know you're trying to address that by the DPA 9 converting to 10, but yeah, I feel this misses the mark to include those.
Thank you, Ms. Molinaro.
Oh, can I just state one more thing, actually?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
We still have 3 minutes.
Oh, great. That's amazing. So when I looked at the business park land intensive industrial, your list, Matt, that you had in your presentation of industries, and I guess target sectors, and then examples of local firms. So Nexty, I actually had a meeting with them, I guess it was the summer of 2019, and they were keen to do something on my larger parcel, but they have no money with which to do it. So I'm not looking to joint venture with a company that's not got any history, if you will, in the corridor. And then another company, 2 of them actually, Fisher Coatings and I believe AJ Forest Products as well, have approached me previously, but they're not willing to pay market rents. So I have a challenge, I guess, with the validity of providing space for them when they cannot afford market rent. And I think the space for them ideally is the BC Rail lands across the tracks. It's my understanding that those lands do not pay property taxes and so don't have the same expenses as we do on ours. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much. I'll go to our moderator again, see if there's any other hands. Again, if you want to participate on the phone, it is *3 to raise your hand, or if you're on WebEx, just go to participant panel and click on the hand icon. Mr. Gunn, I do have a question that was raised in one of the letters. It talks about a parcel to the south of one of these lots, 38931 Queensway, that's zoned I-11, and it's undeveloped and isn't contemplated in the rezoning. Is there a rationale for that?
Just a second. Can you still see my screen? I tried to prepare, but
We can give you back the presenter.
yeah. So let's see here. And which parcel was it? The parcels that I saw referenced. Now there are quite a few different items referenced, but I'll take you through quickly what I saw referenced, and then if I've missed something, please let me know, and I'll bring back.
It's Ms. Molinaro's letter. She references her properties at 1130 Resolution Way and 38933 Queensway, and in that description of 38933, she speaks to the property to the south, 38931.
Is that 38931? Just wait, I just need to look up that address on the map. 1 second. While that's loading, just as kind of a quick overview, can you see the map with the various properties on it identified right now? Yeah, okay. So the lands that are circled in blue are the undeveloped I3 lands. Sorry, the undeveloped lands that are proposed for I3 zoning, and the purple behind the lands is the the purple and blue colors in the background are the designations in the official community plan, which are either based on remaining opportunities for medium industrial that link to the former business park subarea plan, or in one case, this little parcel to at the very south end, which is being used as medium industrial, was designated for medium industrial, though the business park subarea plan did not have that included. So, and what was the parcel that was referenced in that letter? Is it 38931?
Yes.
Yeah, so 38931 is, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but it does have a development proposal for it right now. I think it's in the DP stage. And it is not designated in the OCP for intensive industrial, nor was it designated for heavy industrial in the business park subarea plan. So it had a different policy background than the lands that are proposed for I3. And so it was the lands that were proposed for I3, which are currently undeveloped, and that link to that former business park subarea planning heavy industrial designation that were converted. That one that was referenced, it has a different policy background. Right,
and then I think you answered this in the prior conversation, but if the lots, smaller lots along Queensway were severed from this, I believe you said there's a right-of-way to allow access to the property at the back?
Yes, there is a stub road off of Queensway. If you can see my cursor here, it is in between, just north of the Leon Lebanese project.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner, is there any other councillor with a question? Okay, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering, Mr. Gunn, you mentioned this in your presentation about kind of the history of the zoning of this parcel, or a number of these parcels, and they were switched from I1 to I11 in 2019, and I believe that was a result of our kind of rapid Band-Aid fix to some of the acute issues that we were seeing in the business park at that time, in an effort to try and give us a little bit of room to do this more fulsome review. Can you just remind me of the rationale as to why we included those in the transition from I-1 to I-11 at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. And it builds exactly on your points. And I can go to the history slide here. There we go. Yeah, sorry if I didn't articulate that piece of this clearly. So stretching back to 95, the lands in question had been largely I-1, with the one small component, I-4, that had been consistent up until very recently. But in the initiation of this zoning consideration, one of the key concerns that was impacting the business park was that there was a number of businesses that had highlighted that commercial uses were creating challenges across, and for a number of reasons for industrial uses. So some of the concerns raised were issues with parking or incompatible uses where industrial uses were adjacent to some kind of commercialized use, whether it's a restaurant or a gym, or the main examples. There were issues with businesses that or buildings that had multiple tenants where a commercial use would become established, and then for an industrial use to establish within that building, there would be a much higher fire code requirement because of the adjacency to a higher occupancy use. And then there was concern that some of these commercialized uses were able to pay higher lease rates, and that was pushing up the cost that was negatively impacting industrial uses, which tend not to pay the same lease rates. And so in recognition that these challenges were being allowed because our existing I-1 zoning had a number of commercialized elements in it, which were probably at that time considered to be potentially inappropriate for a business park that was, as stated in the OCP, intended primarily for industrial uses. The I-11 zone was put in place to pause and ensure that there was not a further erosion of that industrial capability for those lands, and to allow time for this process to occur where there was some analysis done, trying to determine what was our needs and our potential supply for these industrial lands, and also to match that to analysis of the retail supply and demand. So that I-11 was intended to be that pause to ensure that there wasn't further commercialized uses that spread throughout the park. So it was really a zone that was put in place primarily to allow this process to go through without further changes that could exacerbate existing problems.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Councilor Pettingill.
Yes, thank you. Just on the high impact industrial, one of the exclusions is gas and petroleum tank farms, chemical or acid manufacturing. And I'm guessing that's in there because of risk of fire or explosion or, chemical spill, that type of thing. But one of the rationales for some of why we're doing this zone is that, carbon engineering or a business like that might set up here. My understanding with carbon engineering, though, what they're working on is either a combustible fuel and or fracking fluid chemical. And those are kind of two of their output products. So as this is written, wouldn't we actually be excluding something close to carbon engineering from the site or these sites?
Thank you, through the chair. That provision was put in place following discussion with council early on, and there was a desire noted by staff to try and put some constraints on the uses that might show up to reduce potential offensive activities. That is a bit of a challenging process because there's certainly lots of things that could fall into that category, and hazard is typically considered a use that would be offensive because it has the potential impact to risk to health or safety. And so in creating that list of offensive uses, staff, myself, tried to do some research on what other jurisdictions use as lists to prohibit in situations where industrial use is permitted, but they don't want to have potentially offensive or harmful uses. And so that list is it's an attempt to respond to the interests of council. There may be uses such as that or some prohibited uses that do create some issues with prohibiting uses that we might want to support there. So it's one of the hazards of trying to kind of come up with these lists of uses to pick and choose and prohibit. And it may well be that at some point a use that may want to locate there that we might have reasons to want to support, but may run into that issue. And at that point, there would likely need to be a consideration through rezoning to address that issue.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just, in terms of it's not quite in front of us, but the example, I guess, in front of us. Am I incorrect in thinking that given their current focus right now, they would be excluded from this site because of this provision? The carbon engineering?
Unfortunately, and I apologize, I'm not familiar enough with their business model or what they're producing to understand the ramifications on that particular business for that set of prohibitions.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hereford?
Thank you. I think from Councillor Pettingill's question would be if someone that wanted to use the property but had their use be classified as prohibited, what would be their recourse? Is there a process? Is that a rezone or some sort of exclusion? I think that might get at the question.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I would need to look at it just a bit. I believe that it's a prohibited use. Yeah, so I think you would need to do a rezoning to change that prohibition on use. However, in this situation, there would also be the opportunity to do a temporary use permit if, for example, a company came in and said, hey, we want to do this, and council wanted to have an expedited way to get them set up and running and then support a rezoning further to that. So temporary use permit in a kind of a more rapid format could address the issue, and then a rezoning is the likely tool that would be needed to permanently change the prohibition so that use could exist on that site.
Mr. Villanisius?
Thank you, Through Mayor. I just reading the definitions and having dealt with carbon engineering's applications in other areas, I don't think that what, for instance, carbon engineering is doing now, which is more of a research and development facility with some fuel storage, I don't think it would trigger the high impact industrial provisions. The way I read it, this would be more, operations that store larger amounts of fuel, which carbon engineering does not.
Thank you. Councillor Hereford, are you good? Councillor Pettengill?
Yeah, I guess just looking, it sounds a little bit subjective then. Is it a tank farm or is it not? Like, is there some sort of objective, this amount of fuel is too much or this amount of chemical is too much? Or how do we decide this is a tank farm versus this is a small amount and it's not a hazard?
Councillor Pettengill, I'm trying to understand how this line of questioning is getting at the rezoning in front of us. It's an excluded use.
I guess I'm trying to understand if this bylaw, the way it's written, is achieving our objectives, which I understand is to support our core and target sectors. And I guess I'm grappling with that alignment.
Okay. Mr. Gunn?
Perhaps one key difference here would be contemplation of the principal use versus the accessory use. And I would hazard to say that if there was an accessory component that was storing some fuel to a permitted use, such as industrial research or an industrial, a development process or research process like carbon engineering, if the storage was accessory, I think that would likely help us define it as not falling within the exclusion use. If the principal use was the kind of tank farm storage, then I think that could be more of an issue.
Okay, I'm just going to go to our moderator and remind the public, if you do wish to make a submission to this public hearing, it is *3 on the telephone, and on the WebEx system, you would open the participant panel and click on the hand icon.
Yep. So we have Joanne Molinaro again. So Ms. Molinaro, we're going back to you. Please restate your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. And as soon as I mute you, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Joanne Molinaro, 8337 Needles Drive, Whistler, BC. My question is for Matt. Sorry, Matt, if you would amuse me and look at your medium industrial background slide and the area in red that was identified in the 2002 business park plan. I just was over on BC Assessment's website, and I guess I'm wondering why there's some vacant lands that haven't been included, and those would be 1080 commercial and 1084 commercial, 1090 commercial. Those all appear just to have a land value under the assessment and not a building value. So my question is, why were those not included if they're vacant? And then you showed a map, I believe, with something proposed on 38940 Queensway.
So can we just do one question at a time?
You bet.
I'm still grappling with that one. So, Chair, is it okay if I dialogue with this to make sure I understand the question?
Yeah, so the purpose of a public hearing is for people to make submissions and not necessarily get all their questions answered. Those could have been answered prior to the public hearing. And so I'll give a little bit of leeway here, but I want to be cautious.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
they're also not subject to the rezoning. So maybe the question is more about how did we determine what to include and not include in this rezoning more specifically, rather than looking at individual parcels, which I think would take you quite a while.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have to say, it's going to take me some digging to follow through this question. So in following your comment, it probably would be easier for me to just speak to the rationale of what we chose. And that rationale was based on the lands that were designated in the OCP for intensive industrial that did not have development on them. Just in my quick attempt to try and understand the nature of the questions from the speaker, I believe the parcels that have been referenced were not designated as intensive industrial in the OCP. And needless to say, it was that aside, the parcels that are proposed for the I3 are the parcels that are designated for intensive industrial that are undeveloped. I think the question is about parcels that are not designated intensive industrial in the OCP.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have any further submissions from the public at this point. Council, I'll just check in with you one more time. Okay, if there are no further speakers, I would ask, well, I just asked you if there's any further information that the planning department might provide in response to any comments or questions raised by members of the public. I didn't see any hands. Now that I've heard from everyone on the speakers list, it is a requirement that I ask 3 times if there's anyone else who wishes to speak before we can close the public hearing. For the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? And again, that's *3 on the phone or raising your hand on the WebEx app. For a second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? For the third and final time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? So not getting any signal from our moderator. Please note that council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions or hear either a proponent or opponent to an application once the public hearing has been concluded. So this means we can't speak to people out in the community or receive emails or phone calls on any of these bylaws until a decision on the bylaw has been made. Any and all communication from this point must be channeled to staff. If there are no further speakers, I declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much for your submissions. Council, with the public hearing now closed, staff have recommended third reading as it appears on your agenda, that the bylaw be given third reading and that staff be directed to amend the DP area guidelines for the lands being rezoned. Councilor Pettengill.
I wanted to try and move option 1.
You would like to move the one that's on the agenda?
We are given 2 options, and I was going to move option 1, or try that. It's on page 18 of the slides we got. And essentially
for the agenda.
The slides for the presentation, I should say. And it's the it moves forward. It basically puts a pause on the I3 piece, and we do a bit more work on that piece and move forward with the rest. Is the short story of it.
You're referring to the alternate staff recommendation?
Yes, alternate option 1.
And that is that second reading for the district zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw number 2767, 2020 be rescinded. That the district of council amend the bylaw that the definition of high impact industrial be deleted from 2B, that the following sections be deleted: 2E, 2F, 2T, 2U, 2V, 2W, 2X, and Schedule A be deleted. And that the bylaw be given second reading as amended, and then we would have to schedule a new public hearing. Is that your intent?
Yes, that was my intent.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Councilor Pettengill, there's no support for that motion to come onto the floor. Is there another motion from council? Councilor Race?
I was going to move alternate recommendation option 2, which essentially just removes the 2 small Queensway properties from redesignation to I3.
So again, this would require us to rescind second reading, put forward an amended second reading, and reschedule a public hearing.
That's correct. So it says.
Can you add the word? I didn't hear you.
Can you add in the word rescind second reading given November 17th, 2020?
Right, so it'd be to rescind second reading given November 17th, 2020. And that figure 35.1 by figures 35.1B from the December 8th, 2020 Business Park Zoning Public Hearing Report to Council. 2B and be deleted, that 2X be replaced with the zoning map being Schedule A to the district zoning bylaw number 2200, 2011 is amended to reflect land and section 2 of this bylaw. My am I getting feedback? And that Schedule A be replaced with Schedule A2 from the December 8th, 2020 Business Park Zoning Public Hearing Report to Council. Is there a seconder to Councillor Race's motion? Second by Councillor Pettengill. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Race?
Thank you. And generally speaking, I am aligned with this bylaw on all of the other aspects of it, and have no issue with that. These two properties, however, I don't feel are appropriate for rezoning to medium industrial for two reasons. One is their frontage on Queensway, which has developed kind of a style or a pattern, and I think medium industrial might not be aligned with that and consistent with that. And the second reason is the size of them, which from my perspective, medium industrial is more suited to the possibility of a larger enterprise. And so these two do not fit that. They're relatively small parcels. And so for that reason, I don't think there's much to be gained by rezoning them into an I3 parcel.
Any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Pettengill, then Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Stoner, then Harper.
Yeah, by my first attempt, you know, I don't think we've hit the mark on aligning what we want these properties for and why we want the medium industrial with what is outlined in terms of permitted uses and the high impact restrictions. And so this is not getting everything I would like, but I think a step in the right direction. So I would support this rather than not. I do also have some concerns about the rest of it, but in terms of the commercial area, but from our last discussion, I don't think I had the traction to move anywhere with that, so I'm not trying to pursue that at this point. But for now, I will be supporting Councillor Race's motion. I would like to see, ideally, when this, in a perfect world, I would see a bit more alignment between what we're trying to achieve and what is permitted there. But I think at least dealing with these two properties is valuable. And ultimately, I think we have identified there are core and target sector needs for medium industrial, and I would really like to make sure we prioritize that and make sure that happens. And I see value in medium industrial for those uses, but I think we're leaving it too open for that to not happen with this.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. I will not be supporting this Councillor Race's resolution. First of all, I think that the analysis of the medium industrial demand leaves us some serious questions and dilemmas. And I think that the quantum raises some issues, and I don't think that we can see parcels of this nature as expendable. I'll just refer briefly to the size issue. Right next door at 1126 Resolution Way is a sawmill, and it's on exactly the same type of property. There are numerous medium industrial use businesses around the valley. Their lands are may not remain in medium industrial according to our present OCP. That's the dilemma. There are, for example, 65 firms in the district of Squamish in the timber harvesting industry alone. And of those 65 firms, 24 trucking and heavy equipment repair shops. 1/3 of these are on temporary locations. I'm not suggesting that these two particular parcels are the answer, but we need to look at the whole ecosystem, if you like, the whole picture. We are in a serious dilemma. I'd like to refer to the three parcels on Queensway, four actually, that are in the vicinity that have been referred to in our correspondence. First of all, 38931 Queensway, and that is to the south of the southerly parcel that is on the bend. We dealt with it not too long ago. The advisory design panel had issues with truck access. It had issues with a residential suite next to a sawmill. Across the road, the Queensway Business Center, we have one real bona fide manufacturer there. There are some woodworking shops and other light manufacturing on it, but the one that's in there is looking for larger premises. in fact, maybe towards a medium industrial. And they've been meeting, as I understand, with some of our council, some of my colleagues. The third parcel, Leon Lebanist, right in the middle there, they are part of a wood cluster for this community, and they depend on other medium industrial suppliers, if you like, and they have active relationships with local suppliers on medium industrial land. I see them as a bit unique in that they're part of that cluster phenomenon. 1121 Commercial Place to the north, I raised last time when we discussed this matter of the business park zoning, as well as the other parcels that was raised by our presenter, Joanne Molinaro, just a few minutes ago on Commercial Place. There's 4 properties there on Commercial Place. This is an example of neglect of our business park sub-area plan that we had in 2002. It was completely overlooked and forgotten, or ignored, if you like. And we should have had a renewal or a review of that plan in 2012. It never happened. This was finally recognized when we came to drafting the new OCP. And Mr. Gunn was among the planning staff who gave attention to this, so we needed to have a look at the situation. So there's been neglect. Finally, I just think that the work, the diligent work, and I think it's a shame that we're not highlighting all of the work that's been done in this business park zoning package. That's really hard work. And I think by all accounts, the engagement has been excellent with all of the stakeholders, including the commercial realty community, who I don't think is entirely in consensus in all of the issues. But at any rate, there's been very careful and good work. And I think that this last installment of effort in trying to find a solution with the DPA guidelines is just an excellent solution that should meet our broad goals here. And I think that that outcome is one I'm prepared to support, the original recommendation of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner?
Thank you. Through the chair, I also will not be supporting the motion that's currently on the table. I would rather support the staff recommendation that all the parcels identified in the bylaw be rezoned to I-11. I am fully supportive of the remainder of the rezonings that are occurring here.
Councillor Stoner, we're having trouble with your audio, so you just missed some of your dialogue there, so I would turn off your camera.
Thank you. Is that better?
That's better.
I was just saying,
you could start from supportive of the other
components here in the bylaw, especially the expanded commercial activities area and the clarification that's coming along with that. I think that has been long awaited and excited to see that that is moving forward, and the amount of engagement that I think staff did with the community to get us to this point was really, really valuable, and I think we have a fair bit of buy-in with the direction of that. With respect to the I-11 rezonings, I would like to see all 4 parcels move to I-11 to do what we are trying to do here with the general zoning bylaw update, which is bring it in line with the OCP and the amount of work and policy work that went into developing the OCP designations. It does really concern me that the current calculations in our employment space model for medium industrial includes all of these parcels at this point, and we are already seeing that that is a bit of a stretch and likely going to be short for our medium industrial users. And so I think removing any land out of that criteria is only going to make that harder for those users. And I think that it is very, very important for a strong, resilient economy that we have a diversified land base and an opportunity for different types of businesses to succeed across our community, and the opportunities for medium industrial are limited, and so I think reserving all 4 of these parcels for our I-11 would be my preferred option, so I will not be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I see that I'm supportive of the rezone overall. I see these 2 properties as just as outliers to the whole to what we're trying to achieve here. Their size and their location to the to sort of the main what has become a main thoroughfare of our community, I think deserves them to be treated a little differently than the larger parcels sort of tucked in the back. So I'll be supporting this motion at this time. Thank you.
Councillor French.
Thank you, and I'm turning off my video, anticipating I'll have bandwidth issues if I don't. I'd like to thank staff for their excellent work on this file and for coming up with what I believe is an appropriate mix that really strikes a balance in this particular area. We've had some excellent feedback, and I appreciate that from the.
Uh-oh. We lost you, Councillor French. Councillor French, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? I can hear you. I take it you're not hearing me?
We lost you at community feedback.
Okay. I didn't have very much beyond that. You can hear me okay now?
So far?
I will not be supporting this motion. I believe that the staff recommendation is where we should be headed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put myself on the list. I think that this is a pretty good bylaw amendment, given that we had so many things to balance. You know, recognizing that business models now include accessory retail, accessory restaurant uses, tasting rooms, and so there isn't sort of that idea that there's, you know, one use now per business. And I think a lot of the changes that are coming with this amendment are really important. And as Councillor Stoner said, it is good to give these businesses some certainty. But with the motion on the floor, you know, I'm not sure how eliminating those two parcels makes sense to me. I think we've heard that we have a shortage of medium industrial land. I think that medium industrial users are about providing a foundation to the other entrepreneurial businesses that are here in Squamish. You know, medium industrial lands means we don't have to travel outside our community to get things fixed. Medium industrial land means that we have supplies for our other entrepreneurial businesses, and we have laydown yards, and so, you know, I don't think the size of the parcel matters. I think that there are people that will be creative, and there are so many uses that are still allowed under this new zoning that I don't see it hampering opportunity. It may take a little bit more time, but you know, these are high value jobs, and I think that staff have shown that. So I'm not supportive of the motion on the floor. I would have preferred staff's recommendation. Councillor Stoner had her hand up again, so I'm going to go back to her.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add something that I forgot to mention in my previous comments, which with respect to the size of the two parcels on Queensway that the current motion considers removing, I do think that the solution that staff came up with regards to shifting the DP areas from 9 to 10 and relaxing the landscaping and the parking requirements goes a really long way in terms of the usable land. And recognizing that they are fronting Queensway, which is a thoroughfare for our community, but that the frontage components around sidewalk and bike lanes would still be a requirement as per the subdivision and control bylaw. And so that alleviated my concerns and why I would still be supportive of preferred option of the staff recommendation, and why I will not be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thanks, Councillor Stoner. I don't see Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, thank you. I heard from one of my colleagues a concern about whether, we are protecting space for forestry uses and the importance of that. And I guess I just hope that we would consider that we could, if that was our intent, limit the permitted uses to forestry and forestry supportive uses and so on. And it seems like we're enabling a much broader range of uses here. And so I wonder if our goal is to specifically, make sure forestry is supported, why we wouldn't be more restrictive in terms of that context and how we are achieving that end by pushing this forward sort of as proposed. I think to my mind, there's a little bit more protection with the motion that's on the floor at the moment. But I just wanted to throw that question out there for people to consider.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands. Councillor, oh, there is a hand. Councillor Stoner, I'll need you to turn your camera back on for the vote. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I felt I should respond to Councillor Pettingill's suggestion. And by the way, I think this is really a...
Through the chair.
Yes, through the chair. And that, just to really acknowledge staff's observation that it is not only one particular industry or another. We may be wanting to encourage new anchor industry investment here, and I don't want to be too hard-nosed about capital I industry, but new anchor investment. But the key thing is a key thing is outdoor storage, and it doesn't only apply to forestry services. It also applies to the construction industry. And I just wanted to suggest that it's a healthy thing to discuss and debate, but I think that we should stick to the definitions that we're talking about as far as attributes, rather than pointing to one industry or another, or an existing industry or a new industry. Stick to the attributes as part of our anchoring our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Seeing no further hands, I'll call the question on the motion on the floor. Any opposed? Councillor Stoner, Councillor Anderson, Councillor French, and Mayor Elliott opposed. Motion fails. So with that, I'd like to move the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Stoner seconds. Are there any further comments? So I have enjoyed this journey through all the motions. Seeing no further hands, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Pettengill opposes. Councillor Herford opposes. Motion carries. Thanks very much. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the public for participating this evening. I will ask for a motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any opposed? Motion carries. And just a reminder, Council, that we have to finish off our committee of the whole to go to the Blue Jeans link. We'll connect there. I promise it is brief. Thanks, everyone.